quick little story. Many years ago, when I was about 20 years old in northern British Columbia, I spent about 90 days living alone on a ranch, caretaking in the middle of winter. Got snowed in, had no vehicle to get out, and it was a terribly isolating experience. I didn't go there intending to spend 90 days, but it ended up being one of the more testing experiences of my life and really challenged my character. But one of the lessons that I often go back to is something that happened during that season, and really a lesson in renegotiation. The situation was one that there were some people trying to buy this huge multi-million-dollar property from the owners, and they kept getting delayed with their money. It was getting it freed up to come from the US into Canada. I don't know the particulars, but it kind of drug on, and maybe in the end they didn't have the money, but it all fell through. But originally I went there for just a couple weeks, more or less saw it as a vacation, and decided to stay a little longer. At some point in that time, about halfway through or 2/3 the way through, the owner, who I'd never met, realized what was going on, and I think had come to the place that he wasn't even going to sell it to these people. They just needed to come back from the States where they were at, because again, we were in northern British Columbia. And he had driven up. He was from Edmonton, so 9 hours away, and drove up and met me, and we had a great conversation, really hit it off, and he asked me if I would be willing to stay to caretake the property after these people got back through the summer. At that point, it had been difficult, but I didn't have any other plans, and the wages seemed reasonable, so I committed to staying for another 3 months after they got back. By the time this situation wrapped up, I was almost 90 days in, and it ended up being exactly 90 days, but somewhere around the 85th day or something, I was hitting a breaking point. I had gone 8 days without seeing a soul in person, and this was satellite phones. The monthly phone bill was already $1,000 a month. There was no internet, and I was pretty lonely. I was as close to having a mental breakdown as I've ever been. I was ready to bail. I just knew there was no way I could stay for 3 more months. And I was trying to figure out how to get out of it. I'd given my word to this guy, more or less promised. And I came from a family that was very strong to keep your word, and that concept had been really encouraged. But here I was in this situation, a young 20-year-old, struggling to figure out how to keep my word when I was getting a mental breakdown. I had every reason to get out of this situation. I had every reason to bail. But somewhere in there, I called an aunt of mine who I had a great relationship with, and she gave me this really profound insight. She encouraged me to look at this as an opportunity to try to renegotiate the situation with this gentleman and not just bail, to really not burn the bridge with him. And so she gave me some suggestions, and I went back to the table with this gentleman. I just told him my situation, how bad I was struggling, that I hadn't been struggling that hard when I'd first made the agreement. So things had changed. But I also said how important it was for me to keep my word, to follow through on what I agreed, and not to screw him over or bail on him. Like, I knew he needed somebody to caretake that property. It was vital, or it could get vandalized. And so I made that an important piece of it. And then, based on her suggestion, I asked for something that could have made it possible for me to stay for the summer. In the end, that family released me from my commitment. I was able to walk away with my integrity intact without burning a bridge. I was able to stay friends with this family for years. Amazingly enough, 2 years later, I was living in California. They had tracked me down, and I opened the mail one day and found in the mail $2,000, maybe it was $2,500, in cash that had been sent across the border. It was unbelievable. They told me they had sold this multi-million-dollar property and wanted to give this to me as a gift because it had meant so much to them that I kept my word. They wouldn't have been able to do it without me. And so I was just so blessed by that, and I was amazed. This is something that I have held on to for years. When I get in a jam, the idea of keeping your word is a very archaic term. We use the word branding now for a lot about companies and their reputation, but also individuals. The term branding, first of all, gets searched something like 500,000 or 1 million times a month on Google. We understand that there's business and success based on having this idea of branding. But what is branding at its heart is your reputation. What is your reputation? It's you saying you will do something and keeping your word at its core. So you have this idea of branding tied to reputation, which is tied to keeping your word. But how do you keep your word? This is the key. Understanding that if you are in a jam and can't keep your word, you need to find a way to renegotiate those terms and to do it in such a way that you can maintain relationship and keep those bridges. You want to keep that relationship at all costs. You don't want to burn bridges, because when you burn bridges, it'll come back to bite you. If you're a young business, that's when you get the reviews online saying you and your business and your employees are blah, 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 but 0 stars or 1 star or 2 stars. If you want to build your reputation in your business and you as an individual, then you need to understand this concept. And I hope this story, I hope this idea helps you today, because I want to see you succeed. And I just can't tell you how much this one idea over the last 25 years has helped me to keep my word, maintain my integrity, and build my reputation, and then to build our reputation in our businesses and build our business brands the last 10 years to become as successful as they are. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you again soon.